Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I'm doing yet another video on Doctor Doom. This one kind of as a follow-up to yesterday's video, as a response to what I feel is the general and also the majority of the community's feedback and reaction to Doctor Doom. So this one's important to watch because not only can you get a feel for whether I have a feel for you, but you can also try to understand things in a little bit more of a kind of global sense for the game. And maybe if you're confused as to why Doctor Doom is not such a hit as you may have expected, you'll have a better insight based on what I'm about to say. I mean, as long as I have the right idea. So I've thought about this for a while, and I've compared Doctor Doom quite a bit to Stryfe, as a lot of other people do, because he's basically as expensive as Stryfe, especially now with level 70, and both Doctor Doom and Stryfe are compared to Jean Grey. Now this comparison is interesting because on the one hand, Jean Grey is cheaper because she costs feathers rather than black antimatter, so she's actually a lot cheaper than them. Additionally, she doesn't have level 70, so she's also cheaper in that sense compared to those two. But on top of that, I think the comparison is done in different years. You know, Doctor Doom comes at the beginning of 2018, 6 months after Stryfe, so those two characters are very close together, but they're basically, you know, in the latter half of 2017, whereas, or sorry, 2018, where he came at the beginning of 2019, whereas Jean Grey came, you know, in the middle of 2017, and she basically blew the game up. She was a nuke, and she destroyed the game and basically became the de facto #1 character for every single game mode, period. And so everyone had to get Jean Grey because she was everywhere and she was required for everything. So because she was required for everything, she became the best character. And because she was the best character and because she was required for everything, her value went up. Her stock just kept rising and rising. And so even now, people will say, even though it doesn't really make sense, I still see people giving the advice, which Epic Quest Deluxe pack should I get? Oh, definitely get the Magneto one for Jean Grey. Are you ever going to get Magneto's uniform? Probably not. Is Wolverine even that good? No, he's not. But just based on this perceived value of Jean Grey, which isn't even true anymore, people are still advocating and still suggesting Jean Grey as the first kind of super expensive character, the kind of mega native tier 2 to get. And that is part of the problem here. That is part of the reason why people think Jean Grey is so much better than Stryfe and Doctor Doom. Granted, she is cheaper, I've already made that clear, but just the memory of the character in terms of how dominant she was compared to Stryfe and Doctor Doom. And for that, you actually have to look at the game modes. Doctor Doom, and also the characters, Doctor Doom and Stryfe came into the game at a time and with a power level that is much more balanced to the existing characters than Jean Grey. Whether it was done by accident or on purpose, Jean Grey was completely fucking busted when she came into the game. There's just no doubting that. She was broken beyond belief, and she was just way too strong. And that was honestly frustrating for a lot of players, but we don't remember the bad times. We remember the good times of Jean Grey. Whereas when Stryfe came into the game, we had just had the Infinity War update a few months ago that jumped the power level up of a lot of existing characters and really set the bar. And then we had Deadpool coming in as well, who took a lot of the spotlight away from Stryfe. And so, you know, Stryfe is not even, he's not the #1 PvP character, because that's Thanos for most cases. Maybe he's #2, and he's not the #1 PvE character, so he doesn't dominate any one game mode as the #1. The only game mode that he really dominated was ABX as a blast villain, but that is way different than Jean Grey, who literally was #1 in every single possible game mode. It's just, there just wasn't any character better than her. And same goes for Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom, you know, he's only #1 for Universal Villain ABX, and maybe, you know, I'm stretching it by saying he's a top 5 PvP character when you're playing a you know, timeline battle on auto. And this is really where it stuck out to me. I read through the YouTube comments on yesterday's video, and you know, I try to read through all the comments. I try to ignore all the dumb ones and reply to the good ones, and sometimes I reply to the dumb ones. And a trend that I noticed is people kind of questioning why I did that. Not only questioning why, also questioning what the value was of timeline battle playing on auto, also questioning or basically just stating, I'm just straight up not going to get Doctor Doom. He's too expensive. He's not that impressive. And that's where this idea really comes in. We're not inclined, as a community, we're not inclined to invest in a character heavily or invest in a character that requires heavy investment unless they show dominance in multiple different game modes, a la Captain America's Tier 3 when he came out. And now in hindsight, maybe you don't even want a Tier 3 Captain America because other characters are doing it better and other characters are creeping up on him or replacing him and they're easier to play. But at the time, he was. But neither Stryfe nor Doctor Doom were the top dog when they were introduced, and they haven't gotten uniforms, so they couldn't have gotten any better. And so this is an interesting kind of dilemma that we see ourselves in as a community, because on the one hand, of course, we're building these characters because we love them. I mean, there's really no better argument you have to make for yourself if you want the character or you don't. If you really don't give a shit about Doctor Doom, you don't care about the Fantastic Four, don't build him. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. But in terms of our relationship with the developers and their relationship with us when they're crafting new patches and they're crafting updates and they're creating new content for us, it's really important for them to realize that we need a place that these characters can shine in if they're going to be so expensive. Because I think just having them be expensive for the sake of their rarity or their popularity or the fact that they're kind of seen as powerful characters in the Marvel Universe is not really good enough. It's not good enough because, for one, it's not consistent. I mean, there are tons of characters who are super powerful in the Marvel Universe. I mean, Thor is probably stronger than Doctor Doom if you read through most comics, and yet Thor is super cheap in terms of his overall cost to upgrade, and Doctor Doom is super expensive. There's really not, there is some correlation, but it's not consistent throughout. You know, the Black Order are really not that strong when you compare them to like Scarlet Witch and some of these, you know, crazier native tier 2 characters. Adam Warlock. I mean, no offense, Corvus Glaive one-on-one versus Adam Warlock, there's just no chance that that's going down in favor of Corvus Glaive, and yet they basically cost the same. Yeah, you know, Adam Warlock has an additional crystal cost, but you know, it's not a huge gap the way it would be in the comics. So it's not a comparison, or it's not a measure of just how popular the character is, because some of the most popular characters are easier to get, Spider-Man especially, and it's not a measure of, you know, the character's power level. So it's not consistent enough. But on the other hand, we as a community suffer and we struggle to realize the value in itself of these characters when there's basically nowhere to go with them. And if the best that I can do as a content creator and as a player who has spent more than 3 years, almost coming up on 4 years playing this game, the best that I can find for him is Timeline Battle. And you know, it just kind of, it does, you're right, basically is what I'm saying. You guys are right. Why bother with Doctor Doom if this is all you're able to do? Now again, I mentioned the part about loving the character, that goes without saying, but for everyone else, there's really no incentive. Now, you may think that I'm saying we should make Doctor Doom super powerful, and we should make Stryfe super OP, like Jean Grey. No, that's not what I'm saying. I do believe that the way Netmarble has designed these characters more recently compared to Jean Grey is good. This 1, 2, 3, if you look at them in this way in terms of the most OP bouncing around to the least OP, they're doing a good job, because we don't want characters like Jean Grey. As much as you guys might enjoy, you know, stomping the shit out of your enemies with one character through all the game modes, it makes the game incredibly stale. And that was what we had with the Loki era and the Carnage era and the Sharon Rogers era and the Doctor Strange era. We don't want that anymore. We want variety. So it is good, it's very good that Stryfe and Doctor Doom are showing some weaknesses that allow them to be exploited, that allow them to be countered, and that allow you to build your roster in a more diverse way. However, the game modes in the game are not evolving. The developers have appeared to evolve in how they're designing characters, but they haven't evolved game modes to also fit that kind of question. I think there's obviously one way that we could do that is with additional world boss stages, whether it's improving or increasing the number of entrances from 5 to 10, or introducing some new world bosses that have certain effects or have certain buffs for specific characters. You know, maybe Stryfe is particularly strong against Cable, which would encourage you to build Stryfe specifically. Dr. Doom is super powerful against, I don't know, whoever. It doesn't really make sense in context as much as Cable versus Stryfe, but you kind of understand what I'm saying. I'm not encouraging them to build a game mode that's specifically for Dr. Doom and Stryfe, but I am saying that there needs to be more outlets for these characters than just timeline battle in the case of Dr. Doom. Now, of course, we also have ABX, I mentioned Universal Villain, and then for, you know, a few hundred players, we have Alliance Tournament. But that really isn't enough. It isn't enough for, you know, the reason that it's just a few hundred players in Alliance Tournament. Additionally, it's an auto-only game mode, so you're not actually even playing with Dr. Doom. But additionally, you want some PvE content. You want some player versus environment content, which feels as though it is made in part for these types of characters. So I don't actually have an answer for you guys, but this is an issue that I see, and this is something that I've kind of felt from the community, and I did feel it myself about 6 months ago when we got Stryfe. I basically rushed to get Deadpool. I tier 3'd him as fast as I could, and then I just sat back and I said, well, what do I need Stryfe for? Yeah, sure, my ABX score could be a little bit higher, but, you know, it's not the end of the world. And we're bound to get another another Blast villain sooner or later. I was right in Magneto, but the larger point is that thing that I was feeling then, and that, sure, I'm feeling it now with Dr. Doom, but I like Dr. Doom more than Stryfe. I have more of an attachment to him on the comics, so there's a personal investment. I can see a lot of my feeling in Stryfe reflected in your feeling for Dr. Doom, and I think ultimately there just needs to be some tweaks to existing game modes, or an introduction of a new game mode that does encourage the building of these specific characters. Another few suggestions that I have off the top of my head: making timeline battle a more popular game mode by improving the rewards. Now, the rewards are already pretty good because you get crystals, you get 200 crystals, but there isn't enough encouragement to really compete for that top 1%. So rather than making it just like this, then 2 to 10%, if they introduced more competition in the top positions, so you could do 0 to 1%, and then 2 to 5%, and then 6 to 10%, and you could maybe double or triple these rewards, it would really push players to take timeline battle seriously. And then building characters specifically for timeline battle would result in a higher evaluation and a higher value placed on these characters. Now, the one thing I have seen that is very promising is the recommended and restricted characters. It seems as though Netmarble is taking a very close look at who is being used and who is being abused in timeline battle, and they're trying to actively ban them more aggressively. I mean, this is the first time ever that Wasp has been banned, which is insane. And she's being banned in tandem with Jean Grey, which reduces the number of debuff characters you can bring in, which forces you to build characters like Sentinel, like Angel, like Odin, like Dr. Doom or Stryfe. So that is great, but this needs to be more, the effect needs to be enhanced, whether more characters need to be restricted, or they need to allow us to play timeline battle more and give us more rewards for participating. So, for example, the participation rewards on this side, if they improve these rewards, or if they made some of these rewards for winning a certain number of matches. Now, they have these in the challenges mode, but it's a one-time effect, so it's not something that you can farm. If they did have weekly win rates, for example, you know, getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 consecutive wins, then again, and if they give you, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 crystals for that, it would really boost the value of these PvP characters without necessarily tweaking PvP in a big way. The last way that I could see them possibly highlighting the value of these Epic Quest native tier 2 characters that are kind of supposed to be amazing is creating game modes that kind of use all of these characters in tandem, because the one kind of annoying part is you work so hard to get these characters tier 2, Crystal, She-Hulk, Thing, and then you're never going to use them again because you're just using them as a key to unlock Dr. Doom. And the same can be said of, you know, Beast and Storm in the Wolverine and the Jean Grey Epic Quest. Some of these characters you're never going to use, not Beast, you're never going to use them again. I always forget Beast is not available for Jean Grey. Or in the case of Deadpool, you know, some of these characters you're not going to use. I never use Domino personally. I barely ever use Phantomex except when people spam in the chat for me to use Phantomex. Bamf. But the point is, if they created game modes, for example, a Shadowland relay that popped up once a week or maybe once a month rather, and it was like, hey, you have these additional 7 stages, you have to use these 7 characters to complete it, and if you do, you're going to get an extra bonus reward. There you go. And, you know, use stage 1. Stage 1 is Domino, stage 2 is Phantomex, Colossus, Psylocke, Cable, stage 6 is Deadpool, and then stage 7 is Stryfe, and they're all built to be kind of challenging for each character. Things like that, I think, would go a long way to, I mean, any one of those changes would go a long way to realizing the value of these characters, because we can't just rely on them being super busted. That's just not an option anymore. The game has matured beyond that, which I'm so thankful for, and, you know, characters with only PvP value in a game that really only has one good PvP mode is kind of sad. It's kind of smelly. It's kind of like some rotten fish. So let me know what you guys think of Dr. Doom, Stryfe, Jean Grey, and the analysis of these characters, their impact on the game, and why they are or aren't valued by the community. Subscribe if you enjoy the content. Hit me up on Twitch for more content. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.